Our reading today is from Stephen Sims. Acts of generosity, big or small, always generate miracles of life. Generosity begets generosity and creates a circular flow of compassion and gratitude. Sharing is the true language of interdependence, and life invites us to be generous both in giving and in receiving. When we live out of a spirit of sharing, we come to know the full meaning of loving kindness. Sharing is not to be thought of simply in material terms, for there is also the generosity of judgment, of patience, of forgiveness, of gentle presence. Okay, so when I started writing the sermon, I couldn't stop singing Carly Simon's song, but alternating the lyrics slightly. You're so vain, you probably think this sermon's about you. Admittedly, I thought the world revolved around me, once or twice in my lifetime. But thankfully, each time, I've had someone in my life remind me that, guess what, sugar cakes? It ain't all about you sometimes. Some of you are a part of this congregation because it's chock full of your friends, because the fellowship and sistership found here is irreplaceable in your life. Some of you attend because being a part of a large group singing, hearing music swell in your ears is the closest thing to touching the divine you've experienced. Some of you come because you're searching for inspiration or wish to be challenged or enlightened. Or maybe because of this you value the sermon the most. Some of you come because you want your children to experience an open-minded religious education, because our values mirror your own, and because you recognize it takes a village to raise a family. I can attest. Some of you come because Candles of Community helps you feel connected to something bigger than yourself. Some of you come because you feel a need to give back to your community, to engage in justice work and make a difference in your world in a meaningful way. Some of you come because you need a place to share joyful news and to have it held reverently. Some of you come because just yesterday you were considering suicide, and this place, these friendly people, it's the thread that kept you hanging on. Some of you came because inside of these walls is the only place in this world you feel safe to be who you are, love who you love, and believe the way you believe. Whatever your personal reason, you pledge your time, your talent, and your treasure because it feels like a worthy investment in meeting your needs and desires. Because without this church, you might not have the feeling of community you have when you're with friends here. The organized justice work to engage in, the inspiration of music or a sermon, and the power and unity felt during Candles. These reasons alone are worthy of your commitment to keep our programs, services, and building up and running. But guess what, sugar cake? It ain't always about you. I think often of the group of people who started this church. So many of their pictures and names are up on our walls, and so many of them are here today in person, long-time dedicated members. Will you please raise your hand if you were a part of the first meeting of this congregation? I think of the ad in the paper from one of our founding mothers. I think it was Diane Stevenson, is that correct? Yep. Who invited all interested people to gather and discuss creating a Unitarian Universalist congregation. I imagine the excitement when so many people showed up committed to creating a space in North Georgia for a liberal religion. I imagine when they settled into their first space, an office building off of 400, and when they bought their first hymnals, hired their first musician, their first minister. Did they imagine in that first meeting where they'd be today? Did they imagine we'd own our own building? That we'd fill up our seats on Sundays? Now, I say that knowing this is the pledge sermon. We're a little sparse today. That we'd have a professional religious educator for our children and a talented music director. They imagine we'd stand up publicly for our values, or that you'd ordain a minister and consider settling one. What do we owe them for their investment in themselves and in us? How do we keep meeting and even surpassing their dreams? When I reflect on them, on you, I think about making them proud. I want to cut a hole through the space-time continuum and give them, those that are no longer with us, a peek at who we are now. I'd say, look how healthy our congregation is. Look how we're growing, both in spiritual depth and in numbers. And to all of you who raised your hands, I say to you, thank you for your faith in us. That faith was not misplaced. And thank you for the many years of fulfilling this church's calling in this world. We literally could not have done it without you. Our forefathers and mothers knew that this church was about so much more than themselves. They knew that in 24 years, there would be people that would find their way to the doors like a thirsty human to water. They knew that there'd be ups and downs, but that if we could keep our goals and our vision at the forefront of our minds, we could be a beacon of hope for many. Think for a moment what would happen if our doors shuttered. Our choir was silenced. Our message ceased to be shared with our larger community. Think about that young gay teenager, so closeted for fear of the world's rejection. Think about that kid being raised in a faith community intent on saving his soul through years of conversion therapy, and he accepts it, thinking that this was the only love he was worthy of, that this is the only image of the divine he'd ever come to see, that he was not welcome in this world as he is, but only as another thought he should be. Or imagine a woman with a baby on one hip and a toddler at her feet who was married at a young age to a man who seemed to love her well in the beginning, but who now only knows how to intimidate, to bully, or to abuse her. She takes it again and again, not just because she thinks she has no place to go, but because she's been taught that women are not equal to men, that only men were made in God's image, that to disobey her husband is to disobey God. Imagine a 70-year-old woman born in the body of a man who looks at herself in the mirror at night when everyone else has gone to bed and sees who she really is, that's too afraid to uproot her life for fear of rocking the boat, because she feels it's too late for her, because her friends and family would never understand, would never support her as her authentic self. Imagine an atheist who longs for a community of emotional and intellectual depth, one in which he can express his opinions and beliefs without fear of retaliation, without receiving the look he seems to get from anyone who finds out about his scarlet A. That look that says, I cannot trust you. You are in collusion with evil. He longs for a community that can celebrate the important moments in his family's life, birth, marriage, coming of age, death, with dignity and with the appropriate level of excitement. But he feels that this community does not exist in real life. Now imagine if that gay teenager suffered years of torture, of inhumanity at the hands of those who are supposed to love and support him most, all because he never saw our heart in the park or our banners in the pride parade. He never saw our Standing on the Side of Love campaign or found our website and read Welcoming Congregation. And he never knew there was another way. That he never knew that there were people in this small town that believed he didn't need to change who he was in order to be lovable and worthy. Imagine if that abused wife never saw a female minister on the news, leading a rally in downtown Dahlonega, and suddenly realized that even women can lead congregations and can live out their spirituality apart from their husbands or fathers. What if she was never introduced to the divine feminine and only ever saw or heard of a God who condoned fear and abuse? What if she missed our message of original blessing, and instead she withered away while her children watched her, destined for the same dismal future? Or that transgender woman who never saw a newspaper article about a church holding a vigil and discussion about Transgender Day of Remembrance? A church who wasn't perfect in their use of the right pronoun, but who tried hard each day to honor the sacred in each person? What if she never felt the support to or the safety to put on her dress, change her name, and feel right inside of her skin? And what about that atheist? What if he never heard about the 6 sources of wisdom and never knew he could have the opportunity he so longed to be in community? The community that would light a candle for him during a hospital stay or welcome his child with hearts full of love and tenderness, all while validating his skepticism and believing in his goodness no matter his lack of faith in a deity. What if he spent the rest of his life building walls to keep from being rejected by those who believed differently than him? What about our children? And if you don't have children of your own, think of children in general. Does this world need Unitarian Universalism? Does it?
You bet. Yeah. You bet it does.
Do our children and children around the world benefit from our presence in this world? I think the answer is absolutely a yes. I think about the OWL program, Our Whole Lives. A program we'll be leading this summer here, a comprehensive lifetime sexuality education program that teaches sexuality in a positive, inclusive, relational, and scientific manner. I think about how we, alongside our liberal United Church of Christ friends, endeavored to create this program because we saw that the information children were receiving during their sex ed classes was vastly inadequate, often filled with misinformation, and relied on a fear-based lens. OWL continues to be a significant gift to children across the U.S., and if we hadn't created it, who would have? And what about a rational, positive religious education? One that doesn't indoctrinate and perpetuate a singular view of faith and religion, but encourages young people and older people alike to think for themselves, to ask questions, and to broaden their horizons. A religious education that doesn't encourage fear or contempt of the other, but provides tools for reaching across differences and creating peace. Are these values ones that this world needs? Are these values our children need? If you believe they are like I believe they are, there's a need for this church here in our community. What do we owe to our children or to these hypothetical UUs, these not yet UUs? How could we possibly live out our vision and mission if we do not constantly have them in our mind? There's a reason we, like most churches, do not allow you to earmark your pledge for a particular part of our operating budget, but rather why your pledges go into a general pot that pays for electricity, new music, water, get well cards, salaries, printer ink, and the cleaning company, amongst much, much more. It's because so what if we don't sing your favorite hymn enough? Or if, after the 200th time, you're sick of the opening words I say each and every service? So what if the cookies get stale? Or you don't even have children in this program? Your money enters into that general budget because sugar cakes, it's not all about you. But we offer here what our mission and vision proclaim is life-saving and transformative. It sounds funny, right? We who do not concentrate much on otherworldly salvation, we who do not go door to door asking if someone has found God, to say we are life-saving may seem like hyperbole. But I have been with these hypothetical UUs. I see them every single day in the hospital I serve as a chaplain. I brought their stories to you. They exist. And the look in their eyes when they realize there is something different, when I affirm their atheism, when I use the correct pronoun, when I remind them they are worthy of kindness and love, it is a salvation of the spirit much more powerful than any scripture could possibly provide. And for better or for worse, I see this church as a type of chaplaincy in a world ripe with pain. We reach out, we meet people where they are, and we love them in a profound way. And we do it all not because we seek to convert them or because of some divine commandment to do so, but because it was done for us. Because we want this place available to others who need it for generations to come. Our values, our message are desperately needed in this world. And if we shutter our doors for lack of funding, we aren't just hurting ourselves, we're hurting those who have yet to find us. I'm always delighted by stories of people who are in line for coffee or fast food and decide to pay for the meal of those behind them. And while it might seem like a vanity project, as each person pays for the one behind them and the one behind them and so on and so forth, with any luck, it eventually reaches someone who really desperately needed it. Let each of us be the person who begins that chain. And let us pay in time, talent, and treasure for those that come next, seeking spiritual and community nourishment. May it be so.